Sharad, welcome to Under the Bodhi Tree with Aryaman Hooda. This is a show where I bring to all the young people out there the stories of successful young leaders like you. So, Sharad, you are the founding CEO of Motilal Oswal Real Estate Fund, which has assets under management over $1 billion. And you have invested in over 150 residential projects in the last 8 years. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. So, before I ask you the first question, I would like you to know that this interview is for young people like me, people in high school, graduating in college, the Gen Zs and the millennials, as they call us. So, Sharad, how were you like in high school, and is there any memory in high school that is still stuck with you?
Yeah, thank you, Aryaman. Thank you for having me. And it is always great to speak to young people. I can definitely, with all my sincerity, tell you that I was nothing like you when I was your age. The time and age that I have grown up and I have educated, the means were limited, the opportunities were limited, and we were pretty clueless. The one of the key objective for at least for my generation, and I did my graduation 25 years back, was to get qualified, get a reasonable education, get a degree, so there is a job in place. So I am of that generation of India, which were lucky to be getting educated and working after the reforms were done. But let me compliment all the young people. The kind of confidence, ambition, and resources are there. I was nothing like you guys way back.
So, Sharad, as you know, India has attracted a lot of foreign funds like Blackstone and Brookfield, and then there's other local institutions such as HDFC who have raised their funds through, international investors. But Sharad, you took a different path. You picked domestic lenders as to lend. So, what was your strategy behind this?
So, Aryaman, I joined Motilal Oswal 10 years back with an idea to set up a real estate fund practice.
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
So I've completed 10 years now.
Wow.
I've been doing real estate since 2001 too.
Right.
What was the key objective of getting into this business was to be a private equity professional, invest into residential stroke commercial project, be part of the growth story of India's real estate. Unfortunately, the availability of capital, especially of the global capital, was extremely limited. We need to look at how the India's private equity landscape, especially in real estate, has grown. So from 2005, when the foreign funds started coming to India, till 2008-9, they had a very limited success. When you are going about building something, you need to look at the constraint, you need to look at the resources. Within the given scheme of things, you need to build a business strategy. One of the key reasons I joined Motilal Oswal to set up this platform is their deep reach and their brand and the distribution in the domestic market. It's a lot more hardworking, but I am a firm believer that India's macro are very good. The local pool of capital is growing, and this is something that has been witnessed in China and some of the other emerging markets. Of course, aspirationally, we would also like to have foreign capital. It has more depth, more patience, but it was just not there. If you really look at in the last 10 years, barring two large institutions like HDFC and Kotak, no one else has been able to raise. Some of the other large institutions like Blackstone, CPPIB, Brookfield have decided to come on their own rather than give money to other managers. So I think our strategy worked out well, rather than, because in case of HDFC and Kotak, the drivers and the resources are extremely different. They are very large banking institutions. Any fund which is sponsored by them would be viewed very differently than a boutique firm like Motilal Oswal. And now I think our decision was good to go out, tap into local market. I would say one more thing: the pool of capital which is growing, there is also a responsibility and opportunity for managers like us to give these kind of products, which is private equity. Otherwise, the products which are offered in the local market are very basics. most of the money is parked into FDs, bank FDs, or will go into hard assets. So I would see this as an opportunity, also as responsibility to offer these kind of products to local HNIs and retail investors.
Right. So, Sharad, you spoke about your experience for like more than, I don't know, 20 years in
Yeah, a little over that,
investing, right? So, you have invested in Motilal for the past 8 years. I think you've made 150 real estate investments at a small ticket size of 8 to 10
million.
million dollars, right?
Yeah.
So, could you tell us in which market these projects are and if the developers are, mid-size or top tier?
Yeah. So, Aryaman, when you are going about to be in an investing business for a long haul, one thing that you have to start with is to get a strategy. You need to find the space, you need to find your strategy, people, and process, and then you need to stick to it. The way we have gone about building our strategy, and we have not moved away from that at all in the last 10 years. And out of last 10 years, 8 years have been extremely tough for real estate. There have been a lot of structural changes that has been done. So our strategy was as follow. India is a very large country. You can spread yourself thin. So focus on metros. So we said we are going to focus on top 6 metros. We have extended it to top 8. The way our country is structured, in these top 8 metros, almost 75% of the real estate in value terms is done. In that also, we prefer to work in IT-led cities rather than large metros like Delhi and Bombay, where there are a lot of traditional businesses, but our focus was more on IT.
So like Bangalore,
Pune, Hyderabad, Chennai, and partially in Gurgaon. These were the cities in which we focused. That was a city where the migration was taking place, which also led to participate into the middle class boom in India. So IT cities, focus first. So you start from the top, you chip it off and say, I'm going to focus on 6 cities. Then moved it to 8. In that, 4 cities will be more focused, which are IT led, where we do mid-income housing. Rather than focusing on luxury in cities like Bombay and Gurgaon and Delhi, we focus on mid-income housing, catering to the IT population. Work with developers who have proven track record. There is no good, bad, or ugly. There is no large or small developers. You need to go about identifying developers, and there are various metrics on which one can look into it. But largely, you look at their track record, they look at balance sheet, they look at their credit history, and the promoter's aspiration to grow their business. This is one part of the identifying the opportunity. The second part, which is extremely important, is the asset management part of it. Once you have given out money, the responsibility is to get the money back as well. And we focused largely on doing mesh structures, credit structures, downside protected structures, and that's where the asset management. What do I mean by asset management? You need to be deeply involved into the project. You need to be involved in operational part of the project. You need to see that the sales are happening in a way which has been envisaged, and get into the checks and balances. That's where the cycle gets from the end to the beginning to the end happens. So we've done 150 investments across 200 projects. We have done 80 odd exits out of that. It's a hardworking model. And why is it $8 to $10 million? We wanted to create diversification. So in $1 billion, we have done 150 projects, 150 investments across 200 projects. The reason for that also was that the chosen strategy was not equity. The chosen strategy was to do mezz credit. And when you're doing mezz credit, one of the ways to reduce the risk in the portfolio is to diversify. So we have various limits. So we don't cross 5% in a specific transactions. In fact, the average is lower than that. Because investment risk you can only reduce to a certain extent. But portfolio risk, when you get a number of investments together, portfolio risk can be reduced. One of the key tools is diversification. Diversification not only in the number of investments, across the life cycle. So you don't invest from a fund in a shorter span. You take 2.5 years. So you are playing the timing part of it. You do across the cities, across the developers, and diversify the.
And that's why you've limited your investors as well, right? Like over a period of time that they have to, they can't withdraw their money before.
These are locked-in funds. Yeah, you need to understand money is going into real estate projects. And in India, the real estate project life cycle is anything between 4 to 7 years.
Right, so it's a
The
long
money is
term.
not there on the call. So
Right.
if I'm committing to a developer to build a project,
Yeah.
I need to at least have a matching timeline to the project. The
Yeah.
fund timeline, the project timeline has to be matching.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will create mismatches in the project. So these funds are typical private equity funds,
Yeah.
which are locked in for a period of 6 to 8 years.
Right. Got it. Yeah. So, Sharad, also, residential development in India is fraught with so many risks as borne out by the experience of banks and non-banks. But so, how has your experience been, and how have you been managing these risks? I mean, you've got amazing returns in the past few years, approximately averaging around 21%. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Aryaman, every sector goes through their evolution period.
Yeah.
In India, if you have to compare it to public market, and if you ask my father, who's 75, and I tell him that you should invest into equity markets, he will not do any investment in the equity market, because in his days of investing, equity markets in India were getting operated in a certain way. Then the regulator was put into place in early 90s, and then the mutual fund came about. Every sector, every asset class goes through that evolution. One more example I take is insurance companies. Till end early 2000, there were only state-owned insurance companies in India, and then the regulator was put into place, which is IRDA, and which created a path for private companies to come in. Look the way in last 20 years the entire insurance industry has changed. Real estate, unfortunately, the regulator was put into place only in 2017.
Yeah, RERA, right?
RERA was came in, and it's a path-breaking regulation. The real rush or the growth in real estate started only in 2002-3, and there is a lot of stakeholders in this business. It's a state level law. It's governed by state laws rather than central laws. I think because there was no regulator, all kind of people came into this business and became developer. I think over a period of last 8 years, the policymakers, the government has taken a lot of steps to clean up the sector. I'll give you one data point. 10 years back, 12 years back, the number of developers in India were in excess of 50,000, because there was no entry barriers, there was no
It was
accountability.
unregulated.
It was not regulated.
Yeah.
Now, this last financial year, top 5 developers have 25% market share. So consolidation is happening. I would like to believe that over a period of next 10 years, we would see the way their business is done in real estate will be more organized, more accountable. Having said that, we are in the business of investing, so we have to be ready to be invest in all kind of business cycle and situations. How do you do risk management in a real estate investing? I think first you need to get your strategy. One cannot go about doing just on opportunistic way lending or investing in this business. You need to get your strategy and then stick to it. The second thing is, in India specifically, the counterparty risk is the key risk. So you need to get the right kind of promoters to work along with you.
Right.
Third is getting the right assessment around the project. So the underwriting around the project has to be conservative and has to be deep down, because eventually the project is going to pay to everyone.
Yeah.
You have chosen a right strategy, right cities, right promoters, but you have to then write projects to pay off everyone.
Yeah.
How does the right project pays off? If you have the right kind of controls into the project. And I think it's a combination of all these things. But I would say in this, my learning is that asset management in a real estate business, and it is more required because the whole sector was unorganized. You had all kind of developers who have come into the business but were not really geared up for right kind of processes. So from my learning for the last 10 years, one of the key risk management is asset management. But as the sector gets organized over a period of next decade and a half, a lot of these developers will become large, the sector will get consolidated. I think it will be choice of promoters, right locations, right projects, right underwriting. You cannot say that this is one business where you cannot go wrong. So what do I mean by that is, if you do private equity investing, classical non-asset based private equity investing, there you have an opportunity to make large multiples in some of the investments. But when you're doing real estate, you have to get all investments right. That is the only way to come out at a portfolio level giving good returns. I'm very, very optimistic. I think over a period of next decade and a half, the sector in India would see great velocities. I see we are extremely underpenetrated. Just to summarize on your question, risk management is the fulcrum of this business.
Yeah.
And the combination of all these things would mean that one would get the desired returns.
Got it. So, Sharad, I think that was absolutely wonderful how you just explained everything. And I just want you to speak more about the growth as you had mentioned in 10 years. Could you emphasize more on that, the changes in the size of the market, and what do you expect will happen in the next 10 years in this market?
So I'm actually so excited about the real estate story in India. Let me put some numbers into the so that there is more perspective around it. India, as a country, has a housing deficit of 30 million homes. This is by NHB, which is a government body. Large part of it is for economic section, but still there is a 30 million urban housing shortage in top 8 cities. There is migration which is taking place. Over a period of last 25 years, India has moved away from an aggregate economy to service economy. And that transformation is something which we're going to gain more momentum. There are more and more people moving to top 8, 10 cities in India for getting job and being part of the service story.
And we are the fastest growing.
We are the fastest growing. So let's divide it into two buckets. One is India's macro. India in last 25 years on a nominal terms have grown at 9% dollar terms. Wherein we have moved to now a per capita of $2,200 and a GDP size of 3.2 trillion. If we grow at 9% nominal dollar for next 25 years, our per capita will move from $2,200 to $18,000. And our GDP size will move to 35 trillion. And in last 25 years, this 9% growth that has come had a lot of broken pieces. A lot of fundamentally the things were not in place. Now we have a good base. India's macros looks very good. One of the things in India is that because we're a democratic country, very large country, there are things at times get slow. But even if it is slow, I feel now next 2 decades belongs to India. Purely on the basis of these macros. Keeping aside euphoria and the optimism and all that, purely on this is something that I feel India's macro looks very good. India's real estate. Residential account for 75% of India's real estate. We have such a housing deficit. No other developed market will have this kind of large size of residential or housing requirement. 2011, which is 12 years back, the total number of units sold in India were 450,000 units. Between 2013 and 2020, which was the period of consolidation, new regulation and regulator, this number fell down to around 200,000. This number last year was 350,000. 350,000 units accounting for $40 billion, which is little over 1% of our GDP. Our GDP is little over 3 trillion. Total value of houses sold in 8 cities is 40 billion only. I don't like to compare it to China and some of those markets. The numbers at times can be little difficult to understand, but they are like 25% plus. A mature market like US also will be early teens. We are like 1.2% of the GDP. So I think, and I'm saying that if this 350,000 units moves to 500,000 units, and this number in 2011 was 450,000 units. I'm not saying that something which has not happened. This happened 12 years back. So I think we are in for a secular growth. Residential, accountability, right kind of developers, right kind of products. This is on residential, of course. As the economy grows, you will have a lot of commercial office requirement.
Will be mainly residential.
Residential, commercial, then there are newer asset class.
And will the percentage change? Like, will it be more towards residential and less towards?
I think at least for this decade, we will see similar kind of ratio.
Okay.
In fact, there are 5% in the end, so 20% is commercial, and the rest 5 accounts for everything else.
Right.
Retail, warehousing, student housing, some of those those opportunities are smaller in size right now, but they will also grow. But I think the large part of the opportunity is residential and commercial.
Right.
They will account for largest size for at least for next decade.
Got it. So, Sharad, also, a lot of NBFCs had stopped lending, especially after the 2018
Yeah.
NBFC crisis, and now the biggest lender, HDFC Bank, HDFC, has merged with HDFC Bank. So, do you think this presents an opportunities for funds like you?
So let me explain how does a residential real estate project gets funded. In India, the residential real estate project requires capital at two stages. Stage one is for the purpose of buying land, getting approval, priming up the site, bit of a marketing activity. Stage two is for the purpose of construction. Our central bank, which is Reserve Bank of India, came with a regulation in 2007, barring all banks.
All banks
to
and
give,
NBFC.
and NBFC also, there was some grey area for NBFC,
Right.
but at least for banks it was crystal
Because
clear.
it's risky, right?
They felt that they should not come at stage one, because that's the stage where the bank money should not come.
Right.
So it's been 14 years, 15 years now that the banks cannot come in stage one, they can come only in stage two,
Right, which is developed.
which is for the purpose of construction of the project. Effectively, the central bank is expecting developers or someone else to put up the capital required for stage one. NBFCs between 2012 and 18 till the time one large black swan event happened with ILFS collapse, were participating in some form or shape for land financing as well, for the stage one as well, which is now stopped completely. Which gives a structural opportunity for private equity funds to come at that stage. As the market grows, I see a very large opportunity. I also see this as a regulatory arbitrage. For somebody like me, it's a clear regulatory arbitrage that large institutions or financial services firms or banks and NBFCs cannot come at stage one because of regulation. And as the market is growing, the largest of developer would require money at stage one. So I see a large opportunity for private equity funds to tap that.
And on that note, Sharad, me being a young person, I'm really concerned about environment deterioration, and I mean it is a global issue. From the construction worker there working in the projects to the biggest of lenders and creditors like you, it will affect all of us. And so basically, as there's more projects and there's more growth in these residential projects, it puts a huge pressure on the environment and the quality of our lives as well, and especially in large cities where you fund your projects. So, how have you supported or incentivized environmental sustainability throughout your projects?
So I think, Aryaman, one thing which is extremely important is the entire ESG framework. As being partner and lenders to most of these developers, we have been very, very concerned to start with. The framework in India are weak to start with, and eventually for some of these things there is cost involved, and the consumer at times not really keen to pay up. But as the partner lender to these project and these developers, we play two parts to it. One is first educating them on some of these things that are important, and they are not only important from an environment perspective. Eventually, they will become business from a business perspective. Also, they will become relevant. Most of these developers, when we have engagement, have come up the curve. Will I be able to say that we have really covered a long journey? I think there is a lot of work still to be done. Having said that, at a portfolio level, now at our portfolio level, we are now getting into a framework where we would rate ourselves on the ESG framework. Because one is the environment requirement, and I think this is something which is important from a business perspective as well. As the young people like you, and I see around, my daughter is 11. She's extremely sensitive around this. She actually genuinely understands and sensitive about it. When she becomes a consumer 10, 12 years, 15 years from now, I think she would really weigh her options when she is buying somebody who's environmentally sensitive or not. So from our perspective, one is the educating the developers, and we have found some success in that. There is a lot of journey to be covered. But at our end, we are now going to follow certain frameworks which puts us in checks and balances as far as these ESG norms are concerned.
Right. And I mean, you've had 20 years of phenomenal, you've had a really good track record for these 20 years. So, are you looking forward to like starting a fund of your own? Or
Yeah, so if you ask any money manager who has done it for long, one of the aspiration is to go independent for various reasons. In our kind of business, you get the best alignment when the manager is the GP owner, whether it's the alignment with the investors, whether it is the alignment with the team. And I'm also seeing that India has local investors, domestic investors have now shown a lot of acceptance towards independent managers. Hopefully, at some point of time, one would probably consider those options as well.
right. So thank you, Sharad. That was an absolutely wonderful and a very inspirational interview. Like going into, and it was really educational as well. Like you explained everything really well. Now I have a few personal questions
Yeah,
of this or that.
yeah, okay.
Right? Coffee, tea, or smoothie?
Coffee.
Steal someone's lunch or have your lunch stolen?
Steal someone's lunch.
Work for a startup or a corporation?
Startup.
Have, this is a bit weird, but have an extra finger or an extra toe?
Maybe two, it will be more useful.
Work with a small team or a large one?
Small.
Work for the best boss or be your own boss?
On those.
Okay, this is, I think, very interesting. One wish today or three in 10 years?
One wish today.
Okay, Sharad, it was a pleasure interviewing
Thank you.
you. Thank you for your
One
time.
thing I'll request that we are going to speak to more people. I will definitely like to see the video of the rest of them because it will be very interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharad.